9 Spine-chilling Burger King encounters. Sinister secrets exposed from haunted night shifts. The moment Jason clocked in for her shift at Burger King, the air thickened with an unease that clawed at her chest. Late-night fryers hissed like bitter spirits, and the soda machine buzzed in the distance, each sound echoing with a sinister edge. As she flung open the storeroom door, thoughts of her withdrawn son Tyler crept into her mind. Moments like this made her heart race, not just from the long shifts but from what awaited her beyond the kitchen walls. With every passing night, the familiar sounds morphed into a chilling melody, a backdrop to the creeping sense that they were not alone. The dim, flickering fluorescent lights cast grotesque shadows that danced behind the fryer, whispering secrets Jason never wanted to hear. Suddenly, from the corner of her eye, a disheveled man with a haunted expression loomed at the counter, his gaze penetrating into her very soul. Each encounter felt increasingly unnerving, as though this man knew her fears, her family's struggles, every private nightmare lingering just out of sight. Shaking her head, Jason brushed his presence aside, dismissing it as fatigue. But the nights grew darker, shadows lurking with an unsettling hunger. The usual banter from coworkers wore thin, conversations growing stilted, tainted by the overwhelming sense of dread. Until that one fateful night, with tired hands cleaning a storage closet, she stumbled across a concealed room packed with yellowed posters of missing persons. The faces stared back at her, disturbing echoes of long-gone employees. With her heart pounding, the chilling truth gripped her: the beloved manager, always wearing that too-wide smile, seemed to be hiding something far more sinister. Panic surged through her veins. The walls felt like they were closing in, and the whispers grew unbearable. Shadows twisted and curled around her, loneliness calling to her. Tyler's nightmares were invading her world too. He'd wake from sleep, eyes wide with terror, shouting about cloaked figures hiding within Burger King, taunting him with hollow laughter. Jason would hold him tight, feeling her heart crack with fear for her son. What darkness were they trapped in? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Raising her fists, she confronted the manager one evening, desperation drowning her words. What's behind those missing posters? His smile twisted into a snarl, eyes gleaming with villainous delight. Some things are better left undiscovered, Jason. The dread etched in every moment sent icy fingers crawling down her spine. Was this man preying on them? Was he holding on to secrets that could destroy her family? As she prepared to delve deeper into the darkness enveloping her life, the restaurant's nightmarish grip tightened. The rooftop faded into a backdrop for a chilling confrontation, confounding her where she thought she found safety. Every nerve lit aflame. Jason knew she was standing on the precipice of terror. And as the unsettling feeling of being watched washed over her, a shadow lurking just beyond sight, she understood this was only the beginning. How far would she go to save her son from the very heart of darkness she had unwittingly embraced? The following shift felt different. The atmosphere wrapped around Jason like a suffocating blanket. Just beyond the fryer's glowing embers, she sensed that shadows were gathering, growing thicker, pulsing with anticipation. Tyler's voice echoed in her head, "Mom, they're watching us." Each breath felt heavier, as though the very air conspired against her. When the clock struck midnight, a sickening chill settled into her bones. The flickering lights intensified, casting frantic shadows that darted across the walls. Grouchy customers faded into the background, their faces blurring, while the disheveled man returned a persistent specter. He stood against the wall, his phantom-like gaze pinning her with the weight of 1,000 secrets. She fought the urge to confront him. Instead, she busied herself behind the counter, staring at the endless rows of plastic-wrapped burgers, praying not to pull back the curtain on terror hiding within. With resolve beating in her chest, she surveyed the restaurant. Something was off. The empty booths, usually filled with laughter and fries, now stood like grave markers. Her coworkers drifted like wraiths, their spirits dimmed, consumed. Whispered conversations turned to ghostly murmurs. Jason caught bits here and there. The old place should be closed, and don't go near the back again. Driven by instinct, curiosity clawing at her insides, she made her way toward the storeroom. Her heart raced. She found herself retracing steps she had taken only days before. Would she find more missing posters? Was there knowledge lurking in the dark? The door to the concealed room couldn't have been more welcoming. It creaked open, revealing a narrow space that chilled her to the bone. A sense of malice hung thick in the air. She stepped inside, flicking on her phone as flashlight, illuminating walls draped with faded images of the missing. Their eyes seemed to follow her, pleading, warning. One particularly worn poster caught her eye, depicting a young woman with a face she couldn't shake. It reminded her of someone, a fleeting thought that sent a shiver down her spine. As she studied it, an icy gust rumbled through the room, snuffing out her light. Panic surged again, an overwhelming dread. She fumbled with the phone, desperately bringing it back to life. Just as it flickered back on, a shadow loomed behind her, tall and ominous. She spun around, breath caught in her throat. The manager stood there, his disingenuous smile stretching wider, more grotesque in the dim light. "Looking for something, Jason?" he hissed, his voice slithering through the air like a serpent. The sound echoed, surreal and nightmarish, compelling her body to retreat backward. She stumbled, nearly losing her balance, eyes darting for an escape. How had he gotten in? Panic ignited a fire in her veins as she turned. The exit felt miles away. Suddenly, a clatter erupted from the front, breaking the tension like glass shattering. Jason's heart raced. She dashed past him, instinctively masking her fear, determined to protect Tyler. With a fierce adrenaline pounding, she burst back into the main kitchen. She could hear laughter, the kind that struck terror into her heart, emanating from nowhere. It was taunting, sadistic, and layered with secrets only the damned could hear. And then it hit her. The laughter sounded oddly familiar, weaving through her mind like an unpleasant melody she couldn't shake. Her pulse quickened with realization. It was Tyler's laughter. Before she could corral her thoughts, the power flickered again, and shadows danced malevolently around her. Something dark was inside, something she had summoned by merely searching too deep. She felt it in her bones, the horrifying knowledge that her son was somehow intertwined in this nightmare, a puppet in the unveiling conspiracy within the walls of Burger King. In a state of sheer panic intertwined with resolve, Jason knew she had to confront whatever evil was hidden here. Could she save Tyler before the darkness claimed them both? With dread pooling in her stomach, she steeled herself to forge into the unknown. The haunting laughter echoed in her ears, dangerously close. And the disheveled man appeared again, this time standing at the threshold, eyes glimmering with the ferocity of forgotten souls. What horror had she awoken within? What had she pulled from the depths? The echoes of laughter morphed into whispers, eerie and seductive. "Come and play," they beckoned, pulling her closer to the edge of her sanity. What awaited her under the flickering lights, and the shadows closing in around her? Would she discover the truth before it consumed everything she loved? The laughter twisted into something more sinister, a ghostly symphony that wrapped around Jason's ears like barbed wire. It was taunting her, mocking her desperate search for her son. She could almost see him, playfully running through the aisles, bright-eyed and free. But that vision was gone. Shadows danced, and with them, hopes slowly faded. "Tyler!" she shouted, her voice barely a whisper against the chaos closing in. The manager's cruel grin never wavered. "You shouldn't be here, Jason. Not after dark." His eyes glinted, reflecting a hunger that sent icy tendrils creeping down her spine. She backed away, adrenaline coursing through her veins, heart pounding like a war drum. "Get away from me!" "Why?" "I'm just trying to help." He slithered closer, each word dripped in malice. The boxes of frozen patties loomed behind him like a wall of unspoken horrors, and she could almost taste the rancid secrets lurking in the darkness. She lunged for the nearest door, heart pounding, but the disheveled man blocked her path, a century of doom. His breath was heavy, and the room filled with the scent of decay. Jason's mind raced. How had they trapped her here? Fear snagged at her thoughts like grappling hooks. "Let me out!" she cried, desperation clawing at her throat. "Why would we do that?" The manager laughed, a deep, echoing sound that reverberated against the chipped tiles. "The shadows want you to stay to play." They were circling her, shadows and whispers, a sickened dance of onlookers who had lost their humanity. Jason felt the weight of their cold gazes, the eyes of the missing bearing down on her. Each face she recognized tore a part of her heart. Then, fragments of a memory surfaced, a story Tyler once told her, about the haunted halls of the place he called King, where kids had vanished, and no one ever spoke their names again. The gnawing dread twisted deeper in her gut. "Tyler!" she screamed again, desperate to reach him, no longer able to distinguish between reality and nightmare. With every echo of his name, the laughter twisted more cruelly, becoming a horrific chant. "Tyler, Tyler!" The shadows pulsated around her, thickening, gripping her limbs, stealing her breath. Suddenly, the kitchen lights flickered on and off erratically, and for a flash, a figure appeared at the far end of the room. It was Tyler, his small form, illuminated for a heartbeat, before darkness swallowed him whole again. "Mom!" His voice was faint, barely a whisper lost in the cacophony, but the longing in it shattered Jason's hold on fear. "Help me!" She bolted toward the sound, but the shadows shrank in and out, creating illusions and tormenting her with every step. "Don't!" the manager hissed, reaching for her. "You'll never get him back if you go." But Jason found a resolve in her heart, fueled by her love for Tyler. The darkness was powerful, but so was her determination. She pushed through, shoving the manager aside, forcing herself into the suffocating gloom. "Tyler! I'm coming!" Each step felt like wading through thick sludge. The stinging laughter echoed, morphing into cries, pleas for release from those long lost in this accursed place. Then she spotted him again, silhouetted against the breaking dawn of reality just beyond her reach, stretching his small arms, eyes wide and pleading. "Don't let them take me!" he wailed. As she sprinted towards Tyler, the floor beneath her began to tremble, a violent rumble of energy rising to a deafening roar. Shadows writhed, becoming more frantic, engulfing her in their grip. Was this the end? Had she wandered too deep into the dark? "Mom!" Tyler's voice pierced the chaos, filled with hope yet edged with despair. Was she too late? Jason's heart raced, adrenaline surging. She felt the shadows' clutches loosening, an opportunity to surge forward. Each moment stretched, time itself teasing her. Just as she nearly broke through to him, a cacophony of anguished screams erupted around her, echoing through the darkness. Then she felt it, a cold, clammy grasp, the shadows pulling her down. "Tyler!" she yelled, her voice resonating against the walls of despair. But his silhouette faded, obscured by the consuming darkness. She could feel herself slipping away. What awaited them beyond this terror? Would she ever see her son again, or had she ignited forces she couldn't control? As the light dimmed and shadows closed in, Jason realized she was not alone, but who would win in this battle of darkness? Something whispered through the shadows, beckoning her with silky lies. The laughter faded, but its echoes haunted her heart. Stay, come, play. Could she fight against the relentless tide, or was this the day she would join the lost? The darkness twisted tighter around Jason, almost as if it had a mind of its own. She fought against its grip, muscles straining, but the shadows were relentless. Each pulse of laughter turned to a mocking chant, ringing endlessly in her ears as though her sanity was about to snap. "Tyler!" she screamed again, her voice raw and desperate, but it felt like shouting into a void. Each syllable fell flat against the monstrous laughter that rose and fell like the tide, demanding her submission. Suddenly, the overwhelming tumult quieted for the briefest moment. It was as if the shadows themselves had paused to bear witness to her grief. In that eerie silence, Jason knew this was a trap, a momentary breather before the next wave hit. Without warning, the lights flickered back to life, revealing the chaotic scene before her. The manager stood closer now, a sickly smile playing on his lips. "Nice try," But you can't escape, he taunted, his voice laced with the bitterness of dating a buried truth. Do you really think they care about you? You're just another piece of meat. Her blood ran cold. The word echoed in her mind, a reminder of the sinister ties to this dreadful place. How many before her had been lured here, chased by shadows and promises of fun, only to vanish into thin air? She shook her head, trying to dispel the thoughts like cobwebs, but it didn't work. A flash of red moved through the shadows, and Jason's pulse quickened. Tyler! She cried, spotting the gleam of her son's bright shirt disappearing around a corner at the back of the kitchen. She could feel the tug of hope pulling her forward, almost an instinct driving her legs to chase after him. But as she took her first step, the shadows rushed in, slamming like a door behind her. The figures of lost souls shifted, their faces twisted in eternal anguish. She could hear their muffled cries and their desperate pleas for release. Each one a mirror of what could become of her if she didn't act. They were warning her, pleading. Help us, one whispered, a skeletal hand reaching out to her. Its grip seemed to grab her heart, squeezing tightly. Jason tore her gaze away, forcing herself to focus on her son. Tyler! She shouted again, fury and love mixing into a chaotic surge of energy. With sheer determination, she pushed herself against the darkness, willing herself to charge through the figures. She had to reach him. Just as she crossed the invisible threshold, she felt something slash at her from the darkness, a phantom's touch, tearing at the fabric of her being. Jason gasped, a cry torn from her lips, but she stumbled forward, pausing only to glance back at the manager, who now stood leering with that awful grin, shadows swirling wildly around him. Don't let them take you! She shouted, forcing the words against the inevitable sinking dread. Jason turned back, catching a glimpse of something shimmering in the shadow just beyond her reach, a flicker, a hint of her son's essence. I'm coming! She shouted, feeding the desperation coursing through her veins. But the shadows grew more aggressive. They surged forth like a tide, a suffocating blanket intent on suffocating her will. It pulled at her legs, tugging her down as she fought to stay upright. Then she felt it again, the familiar warmth of Tyler's presence, just for a heartbeat, surging closer. Mom! He called, and Jason's heart shattered with impatience. Suddenly, everything shifted. The haze of shadows thinned momentarily, revealing an exit, a door leading to what looked like the outside world. The faint sound of cars and distant laughter drifted toward her, a lure of normalcy calling her back. What lay beyond that door? Safety, or perhaps another trap? With renewed vigor, Jason surged toward it, oblivious to the claws of despair reaching hungrily around her. I want to lose you! She cried, leaping through the closing gap just as the shadows grasped futilely at her heels. She collided with the ground outside, breathless and disoriented, panting hard against the cool asphalt. But as she blinked away the remnants of darkness, she found herself not in the comforting light of day but standing alone in a graveyard. Headstones reached ominously into the darkening sky, and a chilling wind rippled through the tombs. Tyler? She called, but only silence replied. Was she truly free? Had she escaped the horror, or had she merely traded one nightmare for another? Unsettling sounds began to rise from the graves, whispers starting to ebb at the edges of her sanity, coaxing her back. What awaited her now? Would the shadows hunt her like prey outside these walls, or had they already claimed Tyler? Jason felt the icy fingers of dread coil around her heart again, because something was watching. Something unfurling in the dark. The cold air in the graveyard wrapped around Jason like a shroud, and the shadows formed sharper edges against the tombstones. Fear gnawed at her insides as she took a hesitant step over a cracked headstone. The whispers grew louder, swirling around her like a storm of broken memories. Help me, they called, unmistakable echoes of lost souls yearning for liberation. She squinted into the growing darkness, searching for any sign of Tyler. Her heart pounded a cacophony beneath the weight of despair. The grave markers stood like sentinels, their carved faces leering, judging her every move. I won't leave you, I promise! She shouted, clutching her flashlight like a lifeline. The beam blinked erratically, as if resisting the encroaching gloom. Another sound erupted from behind her, rustling among the graves. Panic clawed up her spine. "Tyler!" she yelled, but no answer came. Only cold silence responded, swirling into her ears like tendrils coiling tighter. As she faced the graves, a figure emerged from the swirling shadows. It was indistinct at first, then took on the shape of a child, small and trembling. Jason's breath caught in her throat. "Tyler?" she whispered, stepping closer. The child spun around, eyes wide, reflecting an abyss of terror. But it wasn't he, her son. "Run!" it cried. Without hesitation, Jason felt the ground tremble beneath her feet, as if the dead were waking. She turned to flee but felt a familiar tug at her heart. "No!" she screamed, forcing herself to remain anchored. "I can't leave you!" She darted back toward the child, but shadows surged from the graves, black claws grappling at her ankles, threatening to pull her down into the earth. "Help me!" the child's voice echoed. It was merging with the whispers, fading into a chorus of wails that filled her head. Jason pressed a hand to her ears, feeling the panic threaten to overwhelm her. She couldn't lose control. Not now. She closed her eyes, focusing on one thing: Tyler. Just the thought of him lit a spark of resolve. "I will find you!" she shouted defiantly into the dark, feeling the shadows reel back momentarily. When she opened her eyes, a flicker of pale light glowed beyond the labyrinth of gravestones. "Another door?" she hesitated, battling the fear that gripped her. The whispers crescendoed into a feverish chant: "Leave this place! Leave now!" And she stumbled toward the light, wishing desperately it was a beacon, a way back to her son. As she crossed over the threshold, a vision flashed before her, scenes of joyous laughter, of Tyler playing on a sunny day, his laughter piercing through the shadows. In that moment, she wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for him. But as she crossed over, the ground quaked violently, and a deafening roar echoed through the graveyard. Something was awakening from its slumber, clawing its way into the light. The pale glow dimmed, swallowed by an ominous darkness creeping toward her. Jason ran. The doorway she had just glimpsed closed behind her, trapping her within the stifling grip of the graveyard. Around her, figures began to rise, shadowy, twisted forms with hollow eyes locked on her. "Join us," they hissed, a cacophony of voices wrapped tight in anguish. Her pulse raced, heart thrumming with terror. She needed to escape, to find Tyler, even if it meant facing whatever emerged from the shadows. Each step felt like wading through thick mud. Glancing back, she caught sight of the child. It was still there, eyes pleading. "You must go!" it shrieked, voice shattering the air. But as Jason turned to leave, the ground seemed to explode. A powerful figure rose, dark and towering, its gaping mouth stretching wider than any human was meant to. The whispering grew hysterical, drowning her in terror. Help! Suddenly, the grip of shadows tightened, yanking her back, and she was torn between two worlds. Would she face this creature to find Tyler? Or was it too late for both of them? The final words echoed in her mind as she screamed, "Not today!" as the darkness threatened to pull her under. What awaited her now? Would she uncover the truth? Buried in this graveyard, or find the price of liberation was far steeper than she could ever imagine? The earth convulsed beneath Jason, the weight of shadows pressing in from all around her. She was enveloped in a cacophony of cries, each voice blending into the next, creating a discordant lamentation that echoed off the grave markers. The towering figure, a monstrous silhouette against the darkening sky, pulsated with an ominous energy, drawing nearer with each heartbeat. Her instincts screamed at her to flee, but desperation anchored her to the spot. "Tyler!" she roared, using every ounce of power in her voice. It was a hollow cry, reverberating against the headstones like a warning to the dead. The grasp of shadows tightened around her legs, coiling like serpents, seeking to draw her down into oblivion. She tore her gaze away from the monstrous form, glancing back at the child. Its wide eyes were filled with something more than fear. There was a pleading, an urgency. "You have to choose," it shouted, its voice breaking through the chaos, hanging in the air like a thin thread of hope. Jason felt her heart thud violently in her chest. Choose? What choice? 1,000 thoughts raced through her mind. Should she risk everything for the fleeting chance of rescuing her son or abandon this fragile entity that seemed just a reflection of her own fears? Choose! The child cried again, desperation spilling over in its voice, pushing Jason towards an impossible decision. But she didn't want to choose. Every instinct in her screamed against the notion. She couldn't condemn any of them to this fate. The thought of Tyler raged through her like a wildfire. She had to find him, had to hold him again, but this was all too real a moment that pulled her inward, twisting her choices into a snare. Suddenly, the overpowering growl of the awakened creature returned, a deep, growling crescendo that permeated the silence with malice. It was as if the very air crackled with its malevolence, oozing through the graveyard like smoke from a hellish fire. Her resolve hardened. There had to be a way; she could break the cycle of anguish, free not just Tyler but these lost souls. "Let him go!" she shouted defiantly, directing her fury towards the darkness that loomed. But her voice trembled, betraying the flicker of doubt. The shadows writhed, hissing like feral beasts, angry at her defiance. With renewed determination, she charged forward, ignoring the creeping chill that washed over her. She felt the whispers claw at her mind, brushing against her consciousness like icy fingers. "Help us, save us," they implored, drawing her focus. They were desperate but needed her strength now, just like Tyler had once relied on her in moments of fear. At that pivotal moment, she remembered the warmth of her son's laughter, the joy etched in their shared memories, and the endless possibility of love that transcended these forsaken grounds. But the creature, ever so present, was ready to claim her, its maw gaping wider, revealing rows of jagged teeth that could swallow her whole. Time seemed to slow, and she felt herself teetering on the brink. Would she fall into the abyss alongside those who clawed for help? A surge of blinding light erupted from deep within her, unbidden, and she hurled it outward. "No more!" she cried, a battle cry against despair. Everything trembled, both the haunted and the lost, their wails drowning in the rage she summoned. The darkness shrank back, but not without a fight. It lashed out, a whip of shadow slashing toward her as she pushed into the heart of the turmoil. The bounds of reality threatened to unravel around her. Would she emerge victorious, or would she find herself forever entwined in the clutches of the graveyard? The world warped, her breath quickened, heart racing, then all went white. What would be left once the light receded? And would she find Tyler, or merely a cruel reflection of all she had lost? In that blinding moment, the answers hung just out of reach. Light shattered around Jason, a brilliant flash that felt as though it cracked the very essence of reality. She was suspended in that blinding void, feeling weightless yet trapped, a disorientating combination that clawed at her sanity. And then, just as abruptly, the world reformed, the stark white giving way to the ghostly silhouettes of the graveyard once again. She stumbled back, bracing herself against the gravestone. The shadows had receded, but their remnants lingered, swirling like fog around her. The monstrous figure remained, but its eyes were now vacant, a mindless abyss where a soul once existed. An icy dread gripped her heart. Had she done anything at all, or had she only made things worse? "Tyler!" she called out again, the name slipping from her lips like a prayer, trembling with anxiety. The air hung thick, oppressive, she could almost taste the sorrow that permeated the graveyard. Where was he? The child had seemed to tremble with urgency moments before, but now, silence lay heavy like a shroud, suffocating and unmoving. Jason felt the lingering icy fingers of fear prickling her skin. She glanced at the headstones, each one a silent testament to lives once lived. The memories of the child's pleading echoing in her mind brought a renewed pang of desperation. What choice had she failed to see? And then she saw it, plumes of mist rising from the ground, swirling in circles, almost forming shapes. Shapes of faces. Lost souls crying out for salvation. Her chest tightened. They hovered at the corners of her vision, flickering like dying flames, begging for release. "Help us," one whispered, the voice thin and haunting. "We are trapped." Jason's heart clenched. Were these the remnants of the souls she had felt before? What had she unleashed to confront the creature? Was this the consequence of her defiance? She didn't want to surrender, but did she even have a choice in the matter? The shadow's grip was still palpable, tempting her with darkness, promising her Tyler if she simply submitted. "Stay back!" she yelled, aiming her fury at the ethereal forms. A wave of chill swept over her, making her shiver. The chilling whispers grew louder, a cacophony of despair. "Join us, stay with us," it was swarming her mind, wrapping around her thoughts, breaking her focus. "No!" she screamed, willing the darkness to recede, pushing it away with sheer force of will. But then everything slid into chaos. The ground shook violently, and a crack split the air. The wind howled around her like a furious beast, howling her name in mocking echoes. The gravel crunched underfoot, as if the earth itself was alive, amorphous claws emerging to drag her down. She could hear them sobbing now, the souls disturbed. "Jason," they cried as fear seeped into her very bones, racking her with dread. "Help us!" Her memories flashed like lightning. Tyler's face, full of laughter, the warmth of his small hand in hers. The gravity of the choice weighed heavier than ever. Could she save her son and free the lost souls trapped in this hellish limbo? Jason drew in a shuddering breath, feeling the power of her love swell deep within. She wouldn't back down. She wouldn't be consumed by their agony. "I will find a way!" she shouted, determination igniting within her. Just then, the creature lunged, its shadowy form expanding as it charged, teeth bared, mouths whispering secrets of despair with every inch it closed. Time froze as she squared her shoulders, heart pounding, mind racing for a solution amid chaotic thought. But as the creature approached, something shifted in the air. A low rumble echoed through the graveyard. It was no longer just her breathing filling the silence. Beyond the creature's monstrous form, another presence emerged, and it didn't belong there. A flicker of light, not the blinding brilliance she had unleashed, but something sinister and dark appeared in its wake, casting long shadows across the graves. Jason's pulse quickened as she realized she was not alone in this fight after all. Who or what else had been awakened? Her breath caught in her throat. The choice wasn't just hers anymore. A reckoning approached, one that could either save them all or drag them into eternal night. What new horror awaited them both? The creature halted, hesitating just for a fraction of a second as the darkness behind it swelled. Jason's heart was pounding, each beat a frantic warning in the growing tension. She blinked hard, trying to focus on the flickering shapes that danced in the darkness. They were not spirits seeking release anymore. They were ghosts of forgotten things, guardians of this graveyard caught in an ancient struggle. The shadowy figure before her shifted, its mouth twisting into a grimace as it sensed the new presence. A low growl issued forth, one that didn't belong to the creature but resonated from deeper within the void that had just materialized. Jason felt the hair on the back of her neck stand on end. Was it fear or was it something else? "Tyler!" she shouted again, desperation rising like bile. Her throat felt raw from calling his name into this black abyss. She had to find him, but the weight of the spectral forms pressed down on her. "I'm coming for you." In that moment, the ground beneath her feet rumbled once more, but this time it didn't merely shake, it split. A gaping chasm opened at her feet, cracks racing towards her, splintering the cobblestones. She stumbled backward, barely managing to keep her balance. The cries of lost souls mingled with the beast's growls as the creature began to lash out, snapping its jaws in frustration. "Join us!" the phantoms cried, their fury igniting the darkness around her. "We are the truth!" As if answering their call, the new presence coiled and twisted, its form ever shifting. It was a shadow stitched together from nightmares. Jason's breath hitched in her chest, emotions boiling within her. She recalled the story her grandmother once told her, about the shadows that could steal away your hopes and dreams. Had her reckless quest summoned them? Had she unwittingly enthralled the vengeful spirits inhabiting this graveyard? "Stay out of this!" Jason yelled to the darkness, forcing her will against the relentless pull. It shimmered, pulsing like a heartbeat, a malevolent intent behind it that seemed to search her very soul. Then came a rustle, like whispers riding the wind, snapping her focus. Glancing to her left, she caught movement among the trees lining the cemetery. Was someone or something watching her? With frantic eyes, she scanned the surroundings but found only shadows hanging like shrouds. "Tyler, where are you?" Her voice trembled, breaking the silence. "Help us!" The pleas of tormented souls surrounded her. But something was different now. They were not just begging for aid, they were urging her to choose. They recognized something in her, a spark of hope, or maybe it was just another cruel trick. The original shadow creature lurched once again, closer this time, teeth bared, reconstructing itself with every second as it surrounded Jason. Each move sent a chill down her spine, a constant reminder of her impending doom. That flicker of hope was quickly suffocating under the weight of despair. A flash of something brighter pierced through the gloom. Was that Tyler? A figure danced in the corner of her eye, distant yet familiar. Jason lunged to follow the silhouette, her heart pounding in rhythm with every desperate step. The ground bucked violently beneath her. But in that moment of movement, time twisted again. The air thickened, suffocating all possibility of escape. She could feel the eyes of countless spirits on her, holding her accountable. Those haunting whispers grew louder, a twisted harmony that was part lullaby, part dirge. "Choose," they murmured. "Choose before it's too late." Jason's breath quickened, the weight of their pleas heavy on her chest. What was she choosing? Freedom for herself? A life for her son? Or doom for all of them? Then the growl crescendoed, a thunderous warning that split the air as the monstrous creature surged toward her again. Time was running out. Could she save Tyler and escape the suffocating darkness before it consumed her whole? Or had the flickering light already extinguished? A new wave of terror washed over her. What if the truth wasn't what she thought it was? Jason's heart was a war drum, pounding in her ears as the darkness pressed in. The chasm before her widened, and she felt the ground threaten to swallow her whole. She glanced back at the growling creature, its shadow writhing as it seemed to draw power from the very void surrounding them. It was hungry, and its appetite for her fear was insatiable. "Tyler!" she screamed again, as if sheer volume could tear through the veil of terror. She could almost feel his presence, a thin filament connecting them, pulling her toward the flickering light in the distance. The growl transformed into a vicious snarl, echoing in the graveyard. Panic clawed at her throat. What if it was too late? What if she never found him again? Jason whispered the phantoms, their voices dripping with malice. "Join us, choose." "Shut up!" she shrieked, her voice cracking. Each soul's wail echoed, more demanding than the last. The shadows lunged, tendrils of darkness stretching toward her, trying to latch onto her skin, her will, her very being. She felt it a tugging, a chilling caress biting at her thoughts. They were pulling her, not just physically but into the depths of despair, into their fold of eternal torment. Jason shook her head violently, trying to clear the fog of hopelessness clouding her mind. Dread spiraled within her as she glanced again at the brief flicker of light, desperate to reach it. She made a break for it, launching herself forward despite the chasm threatening to drag her down. The growling beast twisted closer. It could sense her fear almost as acutely as it could sense the life she still clung to. Each step felt like running through molasses, the heaviness of the darkness slowing her progress. She could hear the whispers morphing into screams, urging her to abandon hope. But with every ounce of strength, she fought against the tide, aware that each second brought her closer to being swept away. "Tyler!" she yelled, her voice raw but unwavering. "Hold on. Stay with me." The shadows behind her rushed like water, furious and relentless. In her peripheral vision, she saw the bright figure flicker again, a real person this time, not a ghostly mirage, reaching toward her. Relief coursed through her veins like fire, but it was soon drowned out by the growl that split the air again, a reminder of her grim reality. "Jason!" The voice was unmistakably Tyler's, and it sent a surge of strength through her. She could not give in, she wouldn't. Every instinct urged her forward, and she propelled herself through the fog and chaos surrounding her. The stench of rot was overwhelming, the shadow beast a relentless predator. But she could nearly taste freedom, the light ahead shimmering like salvation. Suddenly, A sharp pain coursed through her side as one of the shadow tendrils latched onto her. She screamed, panic mixing with determination. The pain felt real, but so did her love for Tyler. She could not falter now. "Let go of me!" she howled, twisting as she fought against it. The more she resisted, the tighter it gripped her, whispering promises of comfort that felt like lies dripped in sorrow. Each minute felt like an hour as she clawed her way to the glowing figure that still beckoned her, shimmering in the encroaching dark. Then as she neared, the figure wavered, revealing itself momentarily. It was Tyler, but his face twisted in agony. "Jason!" he cried, but his word was swallowed by the explosions of noise made by the shadows. "Help me!" she screamed, reaching out, desperate fingers stretching toward the light. And then everything went black. The ground beneath her quaked violently, collapsing around her, and she felt herself being pulled down into the abyss. The night was filled with monstrous roars and screams that echoed in her mind. What were the shadow creatures truly seeking from her? Was it freedom, or had they done something far worse? The darkness surged around her, and Jason's breath hitched in her throat as the weight of her decision loomed. Would she risk everything for a chance to save Tyler, or would she be consumed by the shadows? As she fell deeper into the void, a chilling thought whispered through her mind like a cold breeze. Perhaps the truth was the greatest horror of all. Jason plunged into darkness, the void swallowing her whole. It was dizzying and suffocating, a relentless grip that threatened to unravel her very essence. As the cold clawed at her skin, panic surged within. She couldn't let it take her. The shadows howled, alive with barely contained frenzy, seeking to drag her deeper into their merciless grasp. And then light. A single pinprick in the abyss. Tyler's face flickered in her mind's eye, etched with innocence and laughter, an incandescent beacon amidst the chaos. She clung to it, forcing herself to fight against the insatiable darkness. "I'm coming for you!" she screamed, shouting into the emptiness. The shadows writhed, angry at her resistance. "Give up!" they hissed, voices combining into a warped symphony that ricocheted around her. It felt seductive, almost comforting, but she would not yield. Summoning every ounce of will, Jason thrust her hands into the void, clawing outward, yearning for any semblance of light. The shadows lashed out, striking sharp as knives. Pain blared like an alarm in her body, urging her to relent. "You're alone!" they taunted, their deceitful whispers echoing, clawing at her core. "Leave him!" "No!" was the roar that tore from her lips. Tyler was out there, lost in the same torment she faced, caught between the flickering light and the consuming darkness. She had to believe he was still there, still waiting. Suddenly, a visceral strength surged through her, igniting her very soul. Jason's heart felt like a drum, pounding fierce and wild while the light grew brighter, surrounding her, blinding her from all doubt, all despair. She visualized Tyler beckoning her with open arms. Hold on to that image. It was pure, untouched by the horrors around her. With renewed ferocity, she pushed forward, diving deeper into the realm of light. She could feel the shadows lurching behind her, dark tendrils of fury. Their snarls rippled in the air, but they were falling back. They were afraid. "You cannot escape," they taunted, their shrieks raw with anger. But she could. The memory of her son's laughter became a shield, shielding her from their claws, pushing her onwards. As light enveloped her, Jason's eyes fluttered open, but she was not in the graveyard anymore. She stumbled onto the cold tiles of the Burger King, the place that had held all her fears. The familiar sounds of hissing fryers and intermittent beeps felt eerily normal, almost comforting. But dread surged, the shadows lingered, curling in the corners of her mind like whispers. "Tyler!" she gasped, scanning the dimly lit restaurant, and then she saw him, small and huddled in a booth, eyes wide and glistening with unshed tears. "Mom!" he yelled, and the sight of him, the tremor in his voice, sent fresh waves of relief crashing through her. She bolted towards him, arms outstretched, drowning in love and every emotion that flooded their bond. "Tyler!" As she enveloped him in her embrace, the same warmth she had fought for wrapped around them both, knitting together freeing threads of hope. In that moment, The shadows began to recede, whispering forlornly, suddenly weak against the brightness of their connection. "I was so scared," he murmured, burying his head in her shoulder. "I thought they were going to take you away from me." "I know," she croaked, voice thick with emotion. "But they won't tea anymore." The restaurant flickered around them, but the warmth they shared created a shield against the shadows, banishing their sinister grip for good, real or imagined. But as she pulled back, her heart wavered. The manager stood at the edge of the kitchen, twisted glee pulling at his lips. "You think you can just walk away?" he sneered. Jason squared her shoulders, Tyler's small hand tightening in hers, filling her with strength. "We've taken back what you tried to steal." The shadows dashed forward, but this time, Jason stood firm. With Tyler at her side, they exuded a light so bright the darkness couldn't invade. It wilted before their combined strength, chaos collapsing like a house of cards. The restaurant became alive again, echoes of chatter filling the void. Warmth and light flooded in, igniting laughter and familiarity. The manager strained against the light, twisted fury settling in his features as he evaporated into the ether. "It's okay, Mom," Tyler whispered, looking up at her with wonder. Tears of relief sparkled in his eyes. "Yeah," Jason exhaled, her heart light. "We're safe." As they stepped outside into the dawn, the sky painted with hues of orange and pink, Jason felt like the world had started again. No more shadows. No more whispers. Hand in hand, they walked toward a new beginning, promises of laughter and sunny days stretching before them. "Mom?" Tyler asked, breaking the silence. "Yes?" She smiled down at him, the weight lifting. "Will there ever be a Burger King again?" Jason chuckled, ruffling his hair. "Only if it serves happiness." As they walked away, the specters that had haunted them slipped back into ritual routines of ordinary life, the shadows fully banished. Their story emerged from horror into light, an ending laden with hope and a fresh start. And as the breeze swirled around them, Jason silently vowed never again to let darkness take root in their lives. They had faced fear together and emerged stronger. Now they were free. But before you go, this doesn't end here. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Don't forget to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this incredible ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is your moment to show your support. Only true fans understand the importance of keeping the community alive.